Hello YouTubers. Today we have something different. Normally we do electronic videos. This time we have a software video and specific to Angular and web components. So recently Angular kind of released this version 6.0 and it had a couple of important features. We're going to use a few of them and try to create web components. Now what is web components and how they work and all stuff? You can basically Google it out and you can find it out. But to kind of give you a very short answer on that, web component is like a custom HTML tag or an element which you can just put it on a web on an HTML page and make it run. Obviously, you need to kind of have some supporting supporting part to it. For example, you might need to include certain framework libraries or polyfills or something like that. But normally, that's what basically Angular that's what basically your web components are. Now, just to take a quick deep dive into it, I'm going to show how to build Angular elements. That is Angular's way of doing web components, right? And currently, as of 6.0, these components can only stay inside the page of an Angular project. There is no official support for them to kind of be placed as a tag, as an HTML tag onto different or outside the Angular project, let's say. All right, so let's get coding here, and this is a Windows machine, and I am going to use VS Code, Visual Studio Code, for my development activities as my ID. So let me quickly jump into the Visual Studio Code here. Right, okay, and so normally I have a habit of typing commands on my Mac, but then I might go wrong here, so just bear with me there. So first thing that you need is obviously the newer framework, right? So what do you do for that? You basically need to have a prerequisite here, and that's your Node.js. Now Node.js by default comes with a package manager called as npm, right? And this is where you'll find all these frameworks kind of being pushed to. So the first thing to do here is to install the Angular framework itself, and that can be done via the newest feature that they have launched, which is called as Angular CLI. To do that, what you basically need to do is just type in npm @angular, or before that npm install is for install, -g is for global, and the package name. In this case, it will be Angular/CLI. Once you do this, it will go back and forth. It will pull some packages from the web and install it for you. And once the whole thing is complete, it's going to kind of tell you that everything is good and we are ready to roll. So I think this one's going to take a bit of time. So I'm going to skip this part. I'm just going to cancel this command here because I already have it installed. And I'm going to continue from here. So let's say now your Angular CLI is installed, right? How do you verify it? Now to access Angular CLI, you just have one keyword, which is ng, right? Which stands for Angular, as everyone knows. And you type in ---- version. This should give you the Angular CLI version. My current version is 6.1.5 here, which is okay, which is the latest as of now that I know. And that's what it is kind of taken off from the internet right now. Yours might be different depending on what time our newer releases that happens and stuff. So this being done, now you have the most powerful tool in your hand. One is obviously you have the Angular CLI, which helps you to do a lot of things which you used to do previously before, by creating directory structures and whatnot. And the second important and the powerful tool is your editor. In this case, VS Code. It's pretty good editor, and it does a lot of things for you. So to start off with an Angular project, what you do is you basically type in the following command. You say ng new, which says new project, right? And the project name. So in this case, I'm going to call this one as, let's say, elements. Okay. Once you hit this, what is Angular going to do? Or what is so this is the Angular CLI and not the Angular itself, right? So the Angular CLI goes ahead and tries to create a folder by the name of the project that you just specified, right? And it's going to start pulling off a bit of all the packages that it needs to kind of have the project in the place. It's going to give you the directory structure. It's going to give you certain build steps. It's going to give you the end-to-end testing framework, all that stuff. It's going to just build that out for you, and it's going to hand it over to you. So that is what it is doing currently right now. It's going to the internet, fetching all the packages for me, creating that folder and stuff like that, and that's what I'm going to do right in front of you. This might take a little bit of while, so I might pause the video and then continue once this is done. All right, like you can see, I have completed the creation of the new elements project here. But now a strange thing happened when I was kind of waiting for this, right? So if you look at this, the NPM itself took quite a bit of time. In my case, approximately 300 seconds, and it did fail in between as well. So I just wondered around what was happening with NPM, and I found out that there were a couple of errors pointing to DNS problems, and I was like confused with why would a NPM org have a DNS problem. And just to do a quick check, I went on the internet and I found this. They actually have a DNS misconfiguration problem. So currently, this is as of today, currently they are still monitoring this issue. So it looks like NPM org kind of redid its own DNS IP addresses, and all the ISPs now need to kind of clear their cache so that they can resolve the exact npm js.org. That is interesting, because I've never been through such a global outage, and it's not just here; it's like completely global outage. Across 300 global ISP, they found out only 8 were kind of pinging them right, or 8 were wrong, or something like that. But then it's a global outage. So if you kind of face such any errors regarding DNS issues or npm js org not being found, don't worry. I think these guys are going to take care of it. But as of today, it seems that most of the 80% of them is restored. Okay, so that was a quick update from the NPM side. But coming back to our project, here you can see it's successfully kind of completed creating the whole project. So let us go ahead and open this in VS Code. Now, to do this, I'll change the directory to elements, because that is what we named our project as. We called the project as elements. So what Angular CLI did was it went ahead and it created a new folder called elements, and inside which it kind of expanded its whole the whole structure, whole Angular folder structure and stuff. So here we go. So we just opened up a new yeah, let me close the old one. Let's go into this one. Yeah. So we just opened up a new VS Code, and we can see that the whole project is loaded here. Now I'm not going to walk you through all of this, but it's a pretty simple thing. You have your source code here, you have your npm modules, and you have your end-to-end tests here. Apart from that, these are a few files that npm requires, Angular requires, or the Angular compiler requires, and some of the files which are required by the TypeScript. So these are the few files. Now, the first step to do in this is you have to use again the CLI, and that's I'm showing you simple and easy commands. So the first thing that you have to do is add the Angular elements dependency or the package here. Now to do that, you can do it two ways. One is you can do npm I @angular blah 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 slash etc. the whole package name and -- slave. That is one way of doing things. The other way of doing things in the new CLI is you can use ng.add and just say angular /elements. Now this is going to bring in a new piece of element. Let me just quickly show you what is there today in package.json. So here you go. So in the package.json, currently we do not have. Let me just take this guy down. Yeah, we currently do not have anything related to elements, right? And this is the package.json. So I'm going to quickly add in the new Angular elements here. Now the same thing is going to happen. It's going to internally contact the npm registry, go back, get the new elements package, start things for it and stuff like that. So that is what the CLI is doing. But then it's a clean and a neat way of adding new packages and stuff like that to the npm register, to the existing Angular project. So that's another command that you learned today about the npm CLI. Now I'm going to again pause here until this completes, and then get back to you. Then we can start the video again. Alright, so this is done. This actually resulted in an error. The problem with this was I was not running this in admin mode, and because I was working on a C drive, npm, it was not letting npm to kind of create changes. So I did it in a different command prompt, and it added the package there, and it completed successfully. But now this is the interesting thing that happened, right? So this was so like you might have seen before, there were no elements before, and this guy just added the elements in the package.json. And another thing that you can see is, if you compare the package.json, you can see that it not only added the same, not only added the Angular elements, but it also added document register.elements as well. Now that dependency is required when you kind of do custom components or custom elements inside the browser, and that's kind of an adapter right now. It's kind of another polyfill that they have, but that is what is there currently. So this is what it does. Now this is the interesting part. When you do an ng new, it also initializes the git for you, so you know what changes you are doing and stuff like that, and everything is tracked. So this is like a cool bootstrap thing that they give you if you want to start a new project. Now similarly, in the angular.json, they have made a few changes. One is to register the elements. So this is the new inclusion that they have in the scripts tab. So that's the change that it has done. So this is where we have asked Angular to go ahead and add the elements into the project that we are doing, and that is what it has done currently. So let me just clear the screen, and now let us. The first thing is to actually look at the source. So the source right now contains all of the important files. Right now it has index.html, which will be like the base place where you start looking at your elements and stuff like that. Now here's the interesting part. It is hosting an app root component, right? Angular component. Now if you look at the app root component, which is sitting inside the app, it is nothing but basically, so let me open the spec. Yeah, sorry, the component. Yeah, so this is the app root component, and this is what is there. There's nothing inside it. It's just a title that it's saying its elements and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and first build this project up and kind of run it. To do that, again, you have simple command ng.serve. Now this does a watchdog as well. So if you change anything here, it will kind of refresh. It does the build part, it does the serving part, everything. And this is where it is starting up. It takes a little bit of time on Windows, I don't know why. On Mac, this is pretty fast. It just happens in a quick. But here, it I think does take a lot of time. Maybe it's my machine, who knows. Yeah, so we'll have to kind of skip through this. So it's compiled, it's successful, and it's added a bunch of things inside. We'll take a look at the distribution folder, but let's first go ahead and take a look at if the dev servers have started. So let's open up localhost. By default, it goes to 4200 port. That's the default for the Angular to kind of view. And here you have the page is up and running, right? So who's doing all this? Who's writing all this? Where is the HTML written? It's written in this part, which is the HTML part here. So basically what happens is it starts from index.html. Index.html tells Angular to load this component, and this component is sitting inside the app root component. The app root component is sitting inside the app folder, wherein you can find the real HTML. So if I just completely delete this off, the whole thing will go. So let's say if I just remove bits and pieces from here, I don't know if I've did it right. Oh, there is one more thing. Okay, done. So if I do Control S, you see the watchdog has triggered and it automatically refreshes the dev server. Now you can see the dev server is also refreshed and you see nothing. So if I just type in my name here, just save and I come back, it's boom, it's there. So that is what I mean. This is just the basic part of Angular. There's nothing new. But that's the dev server that is there integrated again. So all these commands are coming now as a part of the CLI itself, and that's a good thing. So I'll stop the dev server. I'll come back to what we were doing. Now to add an element, what we do is again ng generate component, and you name the component. Alright, so let's just say we create a shiny label, right? To do that, what we do is you just type in ng. I'm sorry, I'm typing at the wrong place. Okay, let's go ng generate component name, and we say shiny la. It's not how you write it. label label. Now this guy is going to go in and add in all the appropriate files with the spec file, and it's going to make all the necessary updates, and here you go. So you have this shiny label kind of folder here, which basically will have all the required files for that comp, right? So let's take a look inside what is there. So we're not going to edit the component heavily. So here it says shiny label works. I'm just going to keep it the default way, the default component itself, because this tutorial is not about how you create components, but how you wrap Angular components as elements. So we'll keep the default things as is. The only thing that we might want to change, which we might want to do later, is do the shadow DOM scoping for the CSS part. Since we're not having any CSS here, it doesn't make that much of a difference, but that is something that you might want to look at once you start creating components. So you already have a component here, and it says app.shiny.label, and this is how it is registered. So if I just simply go ahead and put this inside my where is the other guy? Yeah, put it inside my app component, which is inside my index.htm instead of app root. I just swap it out with this guy saying I need my link component here. Just Control V and Control V again, correct? And if I do an ng serve now, and this is going to take time. No, yes, yeah, it's good. So if I come back to my browser and do Control R, it should load in the new component. What happened? It rendered too many windows. Okay, yeah, it compiled and it's showing nothing. Now we need to look inside what happened. It said something. Oh, the app root did not match any elements and stuff like that. So it needs app root right now, and that is the reason. So I'll show you why. Now this is because it is trying to find out app root and it is not getting app root there. So if I just give him what he wants for now, app-root, and if I go back, yeah, there you go. So the page started working, but I still do not see my text, which we wanted to show was this. Oh, where did it go? Yeah, here. No, not this one. There's a shiny component.html. Yeah, we want to see this text, shiny label works, right? And we are not seeing that yet. Now there was also an error which said that it was trying to find app root, but it couldn't find app root and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at what happened. So in the app module which got registered, we already said that we want to bootstrap the app component, right? Now this is what we don't do in elements. We do not bootstrap them the default way the Angular does, but we register them with the with the DOM element, with the custom elements inside the window, inside the browser. Now that is the difference here that you guys see. So basically what we're going to do now is we are going to say that you want to have the component, if you want to keep the component, you can just keep it, or you can remove the app component because that's completely useless. But then this component should be there in the declarations, as well as it should also be there inside your entry components. Now what is entry components and why are they used? Entry components is nothing but something, it's nothing different, but we are just telling Angular compiler to take this component inside whenever it's compiling the code, right? That is all that we are asking Angular to do here. So normally Angular does the tree shaker part, where it will walk through all the components which are there in the declaration, and it will try to find out if if any of the components are kind of there in the hierarchy where it starts the bootstrapping of the component itself. If it doesn't find that component in the hierarchy, it will do a tree shake and it will drop all the unnecessary components. Now this is done to load your page faster and stuff like that, but we can get into the details later. Alright, so here we are going to do, first thing is let's do a constructor, right? So I'm doing a constructor here, and we'll take in the injector. Now to take in the injector, we'll need to kind of call it from injector from the Angular core. So we'll say, oops, we'll say injector. Oh, not from the app component, the Angular core. Type in wrong place. There you go. So now you have the injector. So we want to take in the Angular service, which is the injector service, and so to do that, I'll just declare it as private. Private inj, okay, colon ingctor injector, right? So now I've captured that, and then I'm going to call in. Since we are not going to bootstrap anything above, we need to do this. We need to have this bootstrap method. So we call this as ng do bootstrap. Sorry, strap. Yep. Ng do bootstrap, and we're going to let this guy be here, right? So what we did was we just created a constructor with an injector element inside, which we got from Angular core, and we just created the ng do bootstrap method. Now this is nothing but a method which is used at runtime by the compiler to do any bootstrapping that is required for any component. Now we need to import create custom element. Yep. From @Angular /elements. If you remember, we had added this previously, and that is what we did. So we're just going to take that guy. Now this is the guy who helps us in creating the things that we require, right? So for example, in this case, this helps us to register our component. So I'm going to quickly grab over a few statements here and say, let's make this our component. So I'll take the shiny label part here, and I'm going to call this as injector colon this dot inject. Is it inj? Oh, it's just inj. Okay, I'm just going to keep that as is, and I'm going to call this as app hyphen shiny hyphen label. So what have we done here? We don't want to put it here. We can put this inside the bootstrap, and that is the exact place where it should be. So let me walk through what happened. So the create custom element package, or the service there, basically what it did is it helps us to kind of define and create custom elements, right? So what we did is we called the create custom element, and we passed in our label component, which is an Angular component till now, right? And we told them that this is your injector. In return to that, it gave us a custom element. Now this element is actually the class object which is extended from the HTML element, right, which normally is used to kind of define custom elements. Now that in the case of Angular, it is ng element, right, and this is the class that it has been returned. Now this class, we are saying that you go ahead and define a custom element called app shiny label with that class. Now this is where we are using the create custom elements again, and basically telling him to create or to register in the browser that there is a app shiny label, a new element that has been formed, and this is the implementation or the declaration for the same, definition for the same. And that is what we have done till now. And you can see that the whole thing is still working. We didn't have any compile errors, which means that if we go back to our index.htm and simply now remove the app root, it should ideally work. Okay, so let's check. If I go back, to my, oh, we still have an error. What is the error? Saying failed to construct the element, please use the new operator and DOM construct and blah 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 blah. So what has happened is, basically the element is there, but it is not able to kind of instantiate it, and that is where it is failing. Right, so when you come back to your IDE, you need to do one thing. Stop the development server first, right, and update the version for documented registered elements. Now why is that? Because currently npm is facing some issues with the existing version, and this is already a registered bug on the Angular's website, and the problem seems to be something with the third-party element, third-party dependency, where they are not able to use the or they had a problem with the existing version of the library. So by default it comes with version 1.7.1, but they have asked us to update it to 1.8.1. So once you update it to 1.8.1, your package.json should show the latest version, right? Once that is done, simply go ahead and start your development server, which is ng.serve. This will basically compile the whole package and put it into one place. And yeah, this takes a bit in Windows. I don't know why again. Once it's ready, you just go back and refresh, or it's already refreshed for you. So this is what we wanted to look at, which tells us the shiny label is working. This is our element itself, and if you do a little bit of inspect, here, so you can see that it is actually an app shiny label here, exactly as the way we wanted it, and it is coming up here, right? So this is how you do elements inside Angular, right? Now one bit part here that we have left is to kind of remove this guy. We don't need the app root. We save the changes and we come back here, and it is still working. It has nothing else in the page. It's completely the thing that we wanted. App labeled, which is shiny, and the rest is all Angular scripts that it loads, and that's it. End of the page. Now this is how you kind of run your custom elements or Angular elements inside the Angular app. Now if we take this a little bit further and we want to include this guy into our existing HTML app, and which is nowhere near Angular or is not having anything similar, right? What we do is very simple. We first go ahead and say npm install, and we call that, we don't install it globally. We say npm install gulp, right? And we say hyphen save dev, saves and dev dependencies. This is going to take a bit of while. Till that time, what we can do is we can go to the root of our project, right? So let us go here. Yeah. So here you see we need to create a gulp file, right? So if I just kind of start creating a new file here and say gulp file.js, this creates a gulp file for me. Now I'm going to copy a bit of code here So I'm going to copy a bit of Git code and paste it into that file. Now it also requires, now I'll walk through the code. Till that time I'll also fire off another npm install, which is gulp -concat -save dev, and let that go through. Till that time we'll talk about this. So what is happening here? So there are two. So when you run this gulp task, there are going to be two things. One, it is going to concatenate all the scripts that it finds in the bit distribution folder. So this will be dist, right? In the distribution folder which has an ending with JS. It's going to concat everything in that, and it's going to concat into, let's say, our shiny element or something. No, let's say elements. Yeah. So we're going to call it as elements. So it's going to concat into a file known as elements, and it's going to show it up into the distribution folder. Now the distribution folder will not be just dist, but it will also be elements. Yeah, /elements/ anything inside the elements folder. So I'll come to this, the distribution folder. It is still not here in the project. We'll come there. So just to tidy up things, I'll close all other files, right, and just keep the gulp file open. So this is where the distribution folder, this is what the first function is going to do. And before we jump into the second function, let me quickly install another dependency, which is gulp rename -save -dev, right? And this is the second task, which is the rename task. So in this rename task, it is again going to do the same thing, but this time it's going to do something different. It's going to look at all the CSS files, right, which are compiled into the distribution folder with the name style.css. That's the default name that the Angular gives, and it's going to put it inside another CSS folder, another CSS file, which is elements. Okay, and it is going to put it in the distribution folder. So at the end, basically, you should have two files: elements.js, which is nothing but a concatenation of all the JS files inside the distribution element folder, and we should have an element.css, which should be concatenation of the style file in the CSS. But that is not going to be that this file is just going to be a rename. We are not going to concatenate anything else. So it's just like a move file, and we should that should also end up into the distribution folder. So these are the tasks when I say gulp. And since now gulp is already kind of installed, I'm going to go into package.json, and I'm going to put in a new command here which says package. Okay, oops, I forgot the comma. Now inside this command, what am I supposed to do? I'm going to call out. Now this is easier in Mac because all you have to do is, npm run, and you just type in what you want to do. So here I'll go and say build and &, which kind of annotates or which says the second command, and in the second command I'm going to kind of push in gulp task, right? So gulp. Now this is all that I wanted to do. I don't know if the && works in Windows, but let's try that out. And the build, I have to say it has to be prod version and without the hashing. Oh, I don't remember the. Okay, so bit of problem. It has to be equal to none. Right, let's fire this up again. So we should see a distribution folder on the left hand side here, which gets created once the build is complete, and it should have another child folder which is the name of the project itself, and it should have all the production ready compiled code that you can host it on any prod server. So let's this might take a bit of while because it's trying to go through the whole thing for the first time. So let it go through. Is that done? No. Oh, okay, it's uglifying. And it should be done. It's quick. Okay, we are done. So now you can see it has elements folder inside this, and it has all the necessary files that you need to put on prod. Right, out of all the other 4 files, it has just picked up those things which are necessary and it's kind of getting there. So if you just take a quick look at this, it has main.js, which will have all the things that you have done in your project, which is under SRC. It has the polyfills, which is required for elements to kind of polyfill certain properties, certain features which are not available across the browsers. It has runtime.js. This is your Angular, and it has some scripts part. Now this is the registration of the component. So this is what it is right now. So what we are going to do is we are going to say npm run package, and I should see concatenated things of the gulp task that we just did right now, or we can just run the gulp task. So let me just first try npm run package. You want to run the build again. Oh, one quick error that I did. This should have been node modules. Yeah, node underscore modules slash gulp slash bin slash gulp dot js. I think this command is going to get failed. Oh no, it passed. Oh, that's good. So it picked up the gulp file and it went through. And if you go back to the disk folder again, you see these two new files created, which is the element.js and element.css. Now this is all that you need. Since our CSS file is empty, let's for now forget about this file. But this file is important. This has the whole bit of chunk inside it, right? So if I now, let's try to do one thing. Let's try to create another folder here. What is this elements? Let's go up directory up, and let's create mkdir, let's say HTML, which is nothing but just plain HTML. Okay, this should create that directory, and I say code HTML that slash HTML. It should go inside that directory and open up a code window for me, VS Code window for me. Now you can see it has nothing inside it. So we're going to start by saying index.html. Okay, so now we have an HTML page. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly copy this file and paste it here, and then inside this I'm going to just pick up few lines from the existing source index page. This is just so that I don't have to write a bunch of code. So I'm just going to go to the index.html, copy all this, come to my HTML project. This is all okay, this is all okay, this is all okay. Okay, here is where we want to change things. Let's just add in one script tag which says, yeah, script tag. Oops, what did I do? CRIPT small. Yeah, so here I go back, and let's say what is this, src equals to elements dot slash elements.js. Now that's the file that we require, and we just have our app label shiny. So this is a simple HTML page that we just now created. What we did is we had the basic of HTML inside it, and just added a resource file. Now let's see if this component, which was a complete Angular component, if it runs outside of the Angular framework, right? So, or if outside of the Angular project, not out of the framework, it is still inside the framework logically. So if I just go ahead and let's say copy this path and open this thing up into my browser. Okay, it has failed. Now it has failed to fail file not found. What was the file not found? Okay, let me just go back again. Right, so the error was simple. I did my mistake. I was not including the type as JavaScript. So I just included the elements class, and I just tried to load the whole page. If I go back again and try to load the whole page, it gives me one error. It says that this zone.js is what is required by Angular, and if you're not using that, then it's a problem. Now zone.js is something which is used by Angular to check where it is loading and all that stuff. Now this is imported normally in your polyfill, and there is an npm package inside your node modules. So what you just have to do is go inside the distribution folder, scroll a bit down and find out zone minified.js, or you can find out zone.js. In this case, I'm just using the minified version. Copy that file over to your project. Okay, so you have your zone. Add a reference to your zone.min.js. And another important part here is to actually comment it out or remove it from your polyfills. To do that, you go inside the source, inside your polyfills, just go down, and this is where you will find out the zone was getting imported. These are a bit of bugs that you will find out since the framework is completely new, or it's not been kind of tested thoroughly with different versions and applications and stuff like that. We are finding out such things are a bit difficult here, but then that is what it is. So I mean, if you just comment this out, the zone thing will go away. I just go back and say npm run package. Since I've removed my polyfill, I want the newer package to kind of load back. And it says it's not found because I went to a different directory. I go back into elements and fire the same command. Yeah, it's going to kind of build the project again and start giving out me the element.js, which is what I need since I've kind of made a bit changes in the polyfills. So let's give it a little bit of a minute, and so my new element.js is ready. I'm just going to copy that, come back here, paste it. By default it does one thing. I'm going to move this guy out, rename this one to element1.js. So what we did was, in this element.js we do not have the zone. Zone is included externally as shown here, right? And then we go back to our plain old HTML and try to load the whole thing. Now again you find the problem of DOM constructor not being called. Now this is another problem in so-called the document register element, it seems like, and there is quite a bit of bugs out there. So if you just basically go ahead and kind of search for this, the first thing that comes up is, you know, why is it not working? Oh, sorry, I did not copy the thing out. The first thing that comes out is the actual solution. So the solution is pretty simple. You just have to include a library. So I'll just go down and yeah. So if you take this guy out and just go ahead and paste it in your index.html, which is here, it should resolve your problem. Now if I go back to my elements page.html, it should work. No, we found another problem, which is custom elements adapter registry. Now this is something new, right? So in the previous thing we saw that that we were still getting errors, and the root cause of that error was when we added the component, this component called as, let me go to the package.json, and yeah, so a bit down, if I go document.register.element, this component seems to have a bit of problems right now. I'm not sure why, but then when we added this component using ng-add, it also kind of added a link inside the inside the main angular.json, right, where this section, line number 29, where it said that, you know, it's going to do some scripts, and that is what it has to use. So we kind of removed that and saved the whole thing, and then we kind of fired npm build again, and took the new file and went back and pasted it here. And this is the HTML application which has nothing to do with Angular framework. It's just a plain old HTML thing, and we added that file there, and we came here and we just did a reload, and we see the shiny label works, right? So this is how we are using Angular components which are wrapped into Angular elements, which are called as the web components, and those can be used outside the Angular app since they are supported custom by the by the vendor itself, Chrome, Mozilla, Firefox or anything. Since they are done that way, we can see basically that such components or such things can be leveraged out of the existing frameworks. So that's all, folks. That is all that we had. So what we just to summarize, what we did was we created an Angular component here, and we started with the Angular CLI. We created an Angular project. From the project, we added an Angular component inside it. We took that component, we wrapped it into Angular elements by using again the CLI ng add, and then we kind of merged and compiled the whole thing into one big blob JS. We used that JS, which is containing the framework, the polyfills, and the component itself, which inside the main.js, right? And kind of took that one JS file, and we included that in our HTML project, which has just the index.html page and nothing else. So it's plain old text-based HTML, plain old HTML with the markup, and we just added our important files that are required. So we added the element.js, which is the kind of the big blob that we created out of the other things. We put in the zone min file, which is required by Angular so that it knows where its components are loading. And we also kind of added a bug fix, which was recommended in the Angular bug list, and that also helped us to kind of show up the label. And finally, we added our element app shiny label, and now the browser itself recognizes that as a normal HTML. So if I go back inside the inside the inspect element, you can see that the browser itself has recognized this as an element, and it's showing me the appropriate content that we had on the label. So that's it, folks. That is all that we had for this small session. I know it's gone a bit too far, but then it was an interesting topic. We covered Angular CLI, and we also covered Angular elements and how we can use them a bit out of box and put them into HTML. Currently the support is limited, but coming in Angular 7, I think it will be completely feasible and open to use, and it will be supported by the framework itself, an official support where we can actually use them outside the box, right, outside the Angular framework itself. So thank you, folks. Thanks for looking at this. If you like the video, do share and subscribe. Thanks.